What's up, everybody? My name is Karit. Welcome back to another episode, and today we are going to be going over Unity, some simple steps on how to become better with Unity, and we're also going to create a simple script. At the end, it's going to look something a little bit like this. But without further ado, let's just get right into it. So, the first thing you want to do is obviously close down OBS. You want to open up Unity and you want to create a new, let's just make sure that I'm recording the right thing. Let's make a new 3D game and we're going to call it, what should we call it, guys? Tutorial. Oh, right. Tutorial. I'm not the fastest typer, but yeah. So organization, you probably won't have this, so don't worry. My organization, or well, what I call an organization is called Karit, and the user's documents, that's also just fine. But don't worry about where you save this project. But if you really wanted to have the project on your desktop somewhere, just go ahead and you can always change this to desktop. So we're gonna click create project and wait for Unity to load up. And when you first open up Unity, when you first open up Unity, it's gonna look something like this. Don't worry about the tutorial services over here. Instead, just click on Inspector. Now we're ready to start. So what we have here, we have main camera, which is the camera. That's basically what you see. You start the game. This is what the camera sees. And you have a directional light, which is just the way the light is facing. So if you want to have a sun in the sky, then obviously you don't want the directional light to go in the other way. You want it to come from the same side as the sun. So it actually looks like the sun is casting the shadows. And beside this, we have the untitled scene. And this scene is basically the game itself. Now over here, we have scene. I just called this a scene, but don't worry, don't get confused. Forget what I said. Anyways, the scene is basically everything we have in our game. The game, well, that's how it looks when you first play the game. And you also have the asset store to download or buy assets. Now up here we have some different tools. You have the hand tool, so it lets you move with a left click, rotate with the left click, and middle mouse button doesn't do anything. Then you have the move tool, which basically lets you move every object in the scene wherever you want. And also you can still look around with left mouse button and zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. Next thing is the rotate. This is very handy if the sun is coming from here, then you just want to rotate it like that and maybe a little bit up. And that's how you change the position of the sun. This is just a preset on the main camera. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So then we have the scale tool. This is basically to scale up and down objects, but you can't really see this. Put this in practice. Let's get a 3D object and cube. Let's first unparent it from the directional light. And now we can move it. We can rotate it however we want, and we can scale it on each axis individually. This is an axis, if you didn't know. You have the X, Y, and Z. Now this is not right, that's probably not the X, that's probably not the Y, and that's probably not the Z, but those three axes are the ones that you actually work with. I'm just gonna go ahead and delete that. Next we have what's it called? These two tools I basically never use. It's called the rect tool, I'm not sure what that does. And this one is move, rotate, or scale selected objects, which is basically all of these three at the same time. Okay, now we've gone over the basics in here. Now if we click on the main camera, you can see we have the camera preview, which is basically how it looks when we first start the game. And then we also get everything here. May look a little overwhelming, but trust me, it isn't really. We have the transform, which is basically its position, rotation, and scale. Then we have the camera setting, which basically means that the camera is a camera. It's supposed to not have a hitbox. Right now it's just a skybox. As you can see, we can change this to solid color, and it changes to a solid color. So when we play the game, that's what we see. We see a solid color. And you have the culling mask, you have projection, and all of this. You can play around with this, but I'm not going to go too in depth in this. We are just going to, we're just going to change this to a nice bright red. Or even, actually, let's change it to a nice green turquoise color. Now, once we've done that, we can actually just delete our directional light, but we're not going to do that. But then we can bring in our cube again. Make sure you're not selecting anything while making the cube, or as you can see, it's going to be what you selected is going to be apparent to that cube. Essentially what apparent is if I were to create the cube again, parent is what contains the cube, if that makes sense. But as you can see, now I don't have anything selected, and now I create the object. It's not going to be apparent of the camera. This is a ginormous cube, and we're not going to have it like this. But also, how do I know where this is in the game? Because currently it's all the way over here. And how can I move this closer and still knowing where it is? Because as you can see, if I rotate the camera, that camera right there, this camera, it doesn't rotate with me. It's just the picture, as you can see. And that's inconvenient because I don't know what's front and what's back. I'd have to click on the camera, then click back on the cube, move it a little bit down, click on the camera again, see where it is. So to make this easier, we're gonna put the game on the side view right here. We're gonna make it equally big, and now as you can see, if we move it, it moves in what we call live time. Basically, you can see this as you move it. So, live. We're going to bring it a little bit up. We're going to rotate it a little bit that way as well. And now we're basically ready. To change the color on the cube, you can't basically click on the cube like we did on the main camera and just select the color. You actually have to make a material. How you do that? Well, you click in the assets folder, click create, and we're going to create a new material. We're just going to call this cube material. Then here you can see we can change the color. How do I know how this looks on the cube? Well, we can just add it to the cube. Click on this and drag it on the cube. But just remind you can't actually click or drag it onto the cube in the game, because that's basically trying to push the cube through, or the texture through the camera and onto the cube. That's kind of weird, isn't it? So we're just gonna add it right here. And I think that actually looks pretty cool. We can always make it metallic. and change the smoothness, or other way around. We're gonna set this to none, bump down actually the smoothness a little bit. The metallicness, we could just bump up that, but we're not gonna do that either. I like how it looks right now. So you could obviously add detail and make this a texture, like a real texture, like maybe a brick or something. But for now, we're not gonna do that. And now we have a cube and a background. Play the game. What you're gonna see is, if you click maximize and play the game, is, well, you see background and a cube. I see the cube is not completely centered. You can easily fix that by moving it a little bit like that. Now, still not centered. Now it is centered. Great. And it's not centered completely on this axis, but we won't worry too much about that. But when you play the game, as you can see the background and the cube. Now we actually want to make the cube do something. To do this, we're going to create a C# script. The script is essentially what tells objects or even people, like characters, to do what. So we're going to create C# script. We're just going to call this cube rotation because we want it to rotate. Then we're going to double click it to open it up in Visual Studio. If you don't have Visual Studio, you will have to download it as preset. It automatically pops up, do you want to download it? When you've downloaded it, you can select what type of looks you want it to have. Click the black and blue because it's more comfortable for your eyes, and it's the same color as I have, which I personally like the best. So what you can see here, well, you can see the script, the public class, which is the script, and we're using monobehavior, which is a type of coding, a way of coding. I'm not gonna go too in depth in that. Then you have a start function, which is essentially what happens exactly when you click the start button, what will happen then. And also update, which is every frame after you have started. So the first frame is the start function, then the every frame after is the update function. For now, we won't use the start function as we don't have any need for it. Then right here, we're going to write public float, and we're gonna call it speed. And always when you make a command, you have to finish it with a semicolon. So what we've done, we've made public float. A float is essentially a number, what can I call it? A digit, something that tells it how fast, in this case, how fast the speed for the rotation is going to be. And public is just so we can edit it once we've saved it, obviously. Just and put the script on the cube, which we're going to do later. You can edit it over here. While if I were to write private, I would not be able to edit it over here. I can show this a little bit later. But for now, we're going to make a public float speed. Now, in the update function, just to make it a little bit cleaner, I like to have everything pretty clean. We're going to write transform with small t, because there's a difference. I don't know exactly what transform with big T is, but we're going to write transform with little t, dot rotation. No, sorry, dot rotate. And for now, we're just going to let that be. So what we've done now, we've said transform. Okay, go into the transform of the cube, which is this section, get the rotation and make it rotate. Now it wants to know what angle it should rotate on. So then you just make these brackets, and in there you write, well, what you want to rotate. So first is the x-axis. We want it to not rotate on the x-axis, so write 0f. Then maybe we do want it to rotate on the y-axis. In that case, we'd write time dot delta time, and we would not want it to rotate on this axis. So just write 0f. Oh, sorry, 0f. And always end the command with a semicolon. Now we've basically done everything. But we made this speed function here. So if we multiply time.delta time with speed, then we can control how fast the cube spins. Which, if we weren't to have this, we could not control that. Time.delta time is basically just ensures that a guy on, or a person on PC with 60 FPS and would play the game, the cube would rotate at 60 frames per second, which is the default in Unity. Now, if there was a person with a PC that was a little bit worse and it ran at 30 FPS, then that would be bad, because it would slow down the cube's rotation, thus making a difference in the game, and that could be crucial to either winning or losing the game. So time.delta time just ensures that in this case the cube spins equally fast on a fast FPS and a slow FPS PC. So we're just going to save that with Control S. We're going to head back into Unity, and obviously to make the cube spin you would have to add the script to the cube. And how do we do that? Well, we select the cube, and you can see that by the name called cube, and you just add the cube rotator script. Now we're actually almost done. As you can see, sorry, not yet, because as you can see, sorry, that was a little too early, but we've made the public float speed. And as you can see here, it's called speed. It's public because we can edit it from here, and it has a float value, so it has a number as a value. We could change this to about 50, and and then the cube would rotate at 50. But if we were to make this private and save it, let it compile, and take a second, we can no longer edit it in the editor. So we're gonna make it public, and it's a float because it has a float value, and it's called speed. And we're gonna have to save that. And also, as you can see, once it compiles again, it's going to be 50 because it remembers that. But when it's private, it's automatically going to be 0. And if we were to delete this, save that, go back into Unity, wait for it to compile. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not going to compile before we edit all the errors. So actually we have to delete this as well. And then save it. Go back, it's going to compile. There you go. We can no longer edit it. But what I wanted to show by this is that you can actually, now it's not going to remember what we previously had. We're going to say public float speed. This time we're going to set it to equal to 75. Actually, let's do 60 because 75 is a little bit too fast, and F because that's a float. It's a number. And when we save this, head back into Unity, wait for it to compile. It's no longer going to be 50, but 60, because as you can see, we defaulted it to 60. This doesn't mean that we can't change it, because we obviously can change it to 50, play the game, and it's not going to reset. But it's just to show that you can also previously set the number before you actually head into Unity. As you can see, we've made a cube, made a background, and the cube is spinning. So, anyways guys, thank you very much for watching this episode. I hope you learned something, and I hope you will use Unity. And yeah, I could help you. So goodbye. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like and subscribe, because I would really appreciate that. See you guys later.